You begin the morning with 3 lines written on a yellow note beside your keyboard. Finish the proposal. Call the bank. Walk for 30 minutes. None is dramatic, so the day seems manageable. Then a message appears before you begin. We need to talk about how you handled this. You read it once, then again, searching for the accusation hidden behind the sentence. The kettle clicks off in the kitchen. Your coffee sits untouched. On the screen, the proposal waits beneath a blinking cursor. You tell yourself you will answer quickly and return to work. Instead, you draft a defense, delete it, write a calmer version, and reopen the earlier conversation to make sure you remember every detail. The tension makes concentration unpleasant, so you check something else for a minute. By midday, you have replied, scrolled, rearranged the yellow note, and completed nothing on it. The message did not take your morning. Your need to settle the feeling before doing the work took it. This is how command over a life is usually lost. Not in one spectacular collapse, but in small transfers of authority. You know what matters, yet whichever feeling arrives with the most urgency is allowed to rewrite the order of the day. Fear says the message must be solved first. Ego wants to prove that you were right. Approval wants everyone to leave the conversation satisfied. Fatigue argues that serious work should begin when you feel better. Appetite asks for one small comfort before responsibility. Judgment speaks more quietly, so it is treated as optional. Self-mastery begins when you stop treating every feeling as an instruction. You can hear fear without appointing it, feel anger without arming it, and experience discomfort without allowing discomfort to decide what happens next. That is not numbness. It is an internal chain of command. Before this is over, you will have a practical system for building that command. Not perfect control, and not a life without pressure or failure. A life in which your days depend less on your mood, your decisions remain cleaner under pressure, and your promises become believable to you again. Whenever you feel pulled away from what matters, begin with one question. Who is giving this order? Is it judgment, or the part of you demanding immediate relief? The question creates a small but important separation between an inner event and an outer action. It reminds you that the loudest voice inside you is not necessarily the one qualified to lead. Which voice takes command most often in your life? Fear, ego, approval, fatigue, or immediate comfort? Keep the answer nearby. It points to the territory where your life most often changes hands. Machiavelli was writing about rulers, war, and political survival, not modern emotional health. In Book 2, Chapter 10 of the Discourses on Livy, he argues that a prince should measure his actual strength before beginning a war and govern himself accordingly. A ruler who mistakes money, position, or public goodwill for usable strength may enter a conflict he cannot finish. Applied carefully to modern life, the analogy is useful because people make a similar mistake inwardly. You confuse intention with capacity. At noon, you promise what the exhausted version of you must perform at night. You assume that understanding a weakness means you have already changed it. You count motivation as strength, then feel betrayed when motivation disappears. Honest measurement is less flattering, but much more useful. When does your judgment become weak? What makes you easy to provoke? Which promises collapse when you are tired, praised, lonely, rushed, or embarrassed? Where have you built a plan that requires the strongest version of you to appear every day? This is not an invitation to insult yourself. Accurate measurement is not self-contempt. A commander who ignores the condition of the troops is not confident, he is careless. You begin mastering yourself by knowing where command usually fails. For many people, the first lost territory is attention. You sit down to complete one demanding task, but the mind begins negotiating within minutes. Check the message, look up one detail, adjust the music, see whether anyone replied. Find a better method before continuing. Each interruption feels too small to matter. Together, they teach your attention to leave whenever effort becomes uncomfortable. Focus harder is rarely enough. A stronger decision is to define what your attention will refuse for a limited period. For the next 25 minutes, the proposal is allowed to be imperfect, the unanswered message is allowed to remain unanswered, and boredom is allowed to sit beside you without receiving entertainment. You are not proving that you can concentrate forever. You are proving that discomfort cannot immediately cancel a decision. A mastered life is rarely built through heroic days. It is built when ordinary decisions remain in force, slightly longer than the impulse trying to replace them. Then comes interpretation. Something happens, and your mind supplies a meaning before the evidence is complete. A colleague gives a short reply, and you decide they are dismissing you. A family member sounds disappointed, and you decide your boundary must be wrong. A project moves slowly, and you decide you do not have the ability to finish it. The added meaning creates an emotion, and the emotion creates an action. Soon you are defending yourself against a conclusion nobody actually stated. Self-mastery does not require positive thinking. It requires cleaner thinking. Write the event in one sentence without motive or verdict. The reply contained 4 words. They disagreed with my decision. I missed 2 planned sessions this week. Plain facts may still be uncomfortable. They simply prevent imagination from entering the room, disguised as evidence. After naming the fact, ask what remains unknown. Then ask which action would still make sense under several possible explanations. Perhaps you need clarification. Perhaps you need documentation. Perhaps the wisest move is to continue working and wait for more evidence. The aim is not to choose the most comforting story. It is to stop an unverified story from issuing commands. Attention and interpretation matter, but the deeper struggle is usually relief. You postpone the difficult call because postponement removes anxiety for 10 minutes. You buy something you did not plan to buy because the purchase changes your mood before it changes your finances. You explain too much because explanation feels better than allowing someone to misunderstand you. You may even abandon a routine after one mistake because quitting ends the discomfort of being inconsistent. Immediate relief is persuasive because its reward arrives now. The cost arrives later, when the day is gone, the balance is lower, the relationship is more confused, or the promise has become another sentence you no longer believe. That last cost is easy to miss. Every broken private promise leaves evidence. Not evidence that you are weak forever, but evidence that your clear decisions can be overturned by temporary discomfort. After enough repetitions, you stop trusting the person who writes the plan because you have met the person who must carry it out. Self-trust is memory. It is the accumulated memory of what you do when nobody is watching, when enthusiasm has left, and when keeping your word becomes inconvenient. This is why a 15-minute governed action can matter more than an impressive new plan. It gives your mind a different memory to keep. You are not always choosing between discipline and laziness. More often, you are choosing between short relief and long authority. Instead of asking, "What will make me feel better now?" ask, "Which action will make my judgment more believable tomorrow?" The answer may be smaller than your ego prefers. Open the document and work for 15 honest minutes. Send the necessary question instead of rehearsing an entire conversation. Move the purchase to a 48-hour list. Leave the room before anger chooses your vocabulary. A smaller governed action is worth more than a dramatic promise made by a version of you who will not be present when payment is due, which costs you more at the moment, escaping discomfort too quickly, or making plans that ignore your actual capacity. The answer shows whether your first task is restraint or redesign. Environment is where self-mastery becomes less theatrical. Imagine 2 evenings. In the first, you place your phone beside the laptop, keep every notification active, and tell yourself not to be distracted. The work becomes difficult. the screen lights up, and a tired mind accepts the invitation before you have formed a complete thought. In the second, the phone is charging in another room. The document is already open to a rough note that says, "Explain why the delay happened." You still feel resistance, but resistance now has fewer doors through which to escape. Character did not disappear in the second evening. You simply stopped forcing character to fight an avoidable battle every 3 minutes. The same principle applies to money. A restless mood becomes far more influential when a purchase takes one tap. Removing saved payment details does not make you financially wise by itself. It creates enough distance for wisdom to arrive before the transaction is complete. A well-designed environment does not replace self-command. It protects self-command from unnecessary negotiations. Prepare the first visible action before the weaker moment arrives. Open the account and list the last 5 charges is stronger than fix my finances. Write the opening paragraph badly is stronger than become productive. A concrete action gives judgment something it can actually order. Relationships reveal another side of mastery. You may be calm alone and still lose command when another person becomes upset. Their disappointment enters the room, and you rush to remove it. You soften a decision you examined carefully, accept responsibility for feelings you did not create, or agree before you have understood the request. The conversation ends peacefully, but resentment follows you into the next room. Mastering yourself does not mean refusing influence. Other people may know more than you. They may see a flaw you missed. Care requires listening, correction, compromise, and sometimes sacrifice. The question is whether their reaction brings information or merely pressure. Listen for the fact inside the emotion. Correct what is yours, then decide whether the remaining discomfort requires action or endurance. Someone can be unhappy with a fair boundary. That unhappiness is not automatic proof of injustice. Someone can criticize you accurately without proving that you are worthless. Someone can misunderstand you without creating an emergency. Self-command allows reality to enter without allowing every reaction to seize the government. There is also a danger in the phrase, master yourself. It can become a harsh private regime in which every tired day is treated as moral failure, every emotion is watched suspiciously, and every hour must produce visible progress. That is not mastery. It is fear with a schedule. You are a person, not a machine being punished into efficiency. Sleep matters. Grief changes capacity. Illness, money, family responsibilities, and unequal opportunities affect what is possible. Some problems require help, cooperation, or professional support rather than stronger self-talk. Self-mastery does not mean blaming yourself for every condition you did not choose. It means becoming more accurate about the part that is yours. Sometimes, the governed decision is to rest before exhaustion becomes carelessness. Sometimes, it is to ask for assistance before pride creates a larger problem. Sometimes, it is to leave a goal that no longer deserves the cost. Command is not stubbornness. A ruler who cannot revise a plan is controlled by the plan. The standard is conscious authorship. Did you choose after looking at reality, or did the strongest feeling choose before you arrived? You can see the difference on an ordinary Friday evening. You promised to review your accounts, but the week has been difficult, and avoidance feels deserved. Self-mastery does not demand a perfect financial overhaul. It asks you to open the statement, identify one charge, and make one useful decision before entertainment begins. The action is small, but it changes the evidence. Tiredness no longer has automatic authority to cancel every agreement you made while clear. Rest can follow. What changes is that rest becomes a choice after responsibility rather than a hiding place from it. This is how mastering yourself begins to change your life in practical terms. Your days become less dependent on perfect moods. Your decisions contain fewer interpretations disguised as facts. Your confidence becomes less theatrical, because it rests on remembered evidence that you can act while uncomfortable. Now build a system, simple enough to use when self-command is weak. For the next 14 days, choose one territory. Do not attempt to govern your entire life at once. Choose attention, anger, spending, sleep, approval-seeking, avoidance, or one private promise you repeatedly break. Define the exact moment when command is usually lost. Do not write, "I need more discipline." Write, "When a critical message arrives, I abandon the task in front of me." Or, "When I feel behind, I scroll instead of beginning." Or, "When someone is disappointed, I agree before examining the request." A precise failure point can be defended. A vague identity cannot. Next, create one short replacement order. When the critical message arrives, record the fact, wait 10 minutes, and decide whether a response is required. When confidence is absent, complete the first 15 minutes before evaluating the task. When a purchase is meant to change your mood, save it and review it after 2 nights. Keep the order short. Under pressure, complicated rules become suggestions. Then arrange the field. Put one physical obstacle in the path of the old behavior and one visible path toward the new one. The phone charges outside the room. The spending app no longer holds your card. The document is open to the first unfinished sentence. The boundary phrase is written before the conversation begins. When the trigger arrives, do not debate your entire identity. Name 4 things: what happened, what you feel, what the impulse wants, and which outcome will still matter after the feeling passes. Then take the smallest action that serves the final answer. Do not wait to feel mastered. The feeling of self-command often arrives after the governed action, not before it. You send the clear question while uncertain, begin while resistant, leave the argument while angry, or keep the boundary while guilty. The emotion may remain. What changes first is its rank. You also need a repair rule, because you will fail. One distracted morning does not require a ruined week. One impulsive purchase does not require another. One angry sentence does not excuse the next 5. Repair within 24 hours when possible. Return to the task. Acknowledge the mistake. Restore the boundary. Move the money. Reset the environment. Do not turn a lapse into an identity, merely because shame prefers a complete story. At night, record one piece of evidence. Where did judgment remain in command longer than usual? Perhaps you waited before answering. Perhaps you worked through 10 uncomfortable minutes, said no without writing an essay, or stopped after the first mistake, instead of converting it into surrender. This is how self-trust is rebuilt, not through a speech about who you intend to become, but through memories of what you did under pressure. After 14 days, do not ask whether you became a different person. Ask whether the old impulse lost any automatic authority. Did your day depend slightly less on your mood? Did you separate fact from interpretation more quickly? Did one promise become more believable because you kept it when keeping it was inconvenient? Those are not small changes. They are the first signs that the authorship of your life is returning to you. Return to the yellow note beside the keyboard. Another morning begins. The proposal is open, and the first paragraph is waiting. Then the same message appears. We need to talk about how you handled this. Your body still reacts. Self-mastery has not made you indifferent or certain. The old order arrives quickly. Solve the feeling before doing anything else. This time, you recognize the voice. Fear wants immediate clearance. You write the fact. A message requested a conversation, but no specific problem has been given. You choose the outcome that matters. Finish the first section of the proposal, then address the issue with enough information to respond well. You send one sentence. I saw your message. I can talk at 11. Please send the specific point you want to discuss. Then you turn the phone face down and begin. The conversation may still be difficult. The proposal may still need revision. The bank may still keep you waiting, and the walk may happen in light rain. You have not mastered the world. You have prevented one unfinished feeling from becoming the author of the whole day. That is how mastery of life actually begins. Your mood no longer receives automatic control of your time. Your interpretations no longer outrank the facts, and your private promises begin to accumulate evidence behind them. Which territory will you govern for the next 14 days? And what short rule will protect it when pressure arrives? Subscribe to the Machiavelli framework for modern lessons on self-mastery, human nature, boundaries, and strategic judgment. A life becomes yours when impulse speaks first, and judgment still gives the final order.